Do this video justice. So I took the shirt off because my hyper focus on my chest creates a situation into which I don't feel like wearing a shirt because it feels too tight, even though I've worn shirts for most of my life. So I take the shirt off and I'm gonna go to an empty parking lot because I want to make sure I can focus on this. And my talking cadence is gonna be a little bit thrown off because, well, you'll see. So basically where we're at right now, right? It's about March 8th recording this video. I've been in an anxious state, an anxiety state, one might say, since when? Mid-December, probably. Like, that'd be like a pretty good estimate. I may not have been this bad in an anxiety state, but still an anxiety state, right? That's probably about when it got started. Turn the AC on, make sure I get, the opposite of hot and toast. I'm gonna take this jacket off, by the way. You guys are gonna see my naked titties, so just be prepared for that, I guess. But it goes in part to kind of what I was looking at hypersensitivity videos earlier today, mainly from anxietycenter.uk, which is a great resource, and the Anxious Truth podcast, who has an episode on it, which I would certainly recommend subscribing to both of those platforms if you are just anxiety symptom focused, as I am still at this moment. The empty parking lot, let's go. Hopefully I don't get shot. I got a piece in the back, but Lord knows I don't know how to use that thing. Hopefully no cops come by. We're pretty close to police station, so it's might need a loitering charge here, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so as I said, I'm gonna take this jacket off. It's a thing where the topic of today for me is going to be related to testing. The reason I'm going into this is because yesterday I went to an AFC, American Family Care, which many of them exist in America, North America, and basically they can do testing for like general diagnostics, right? So I'd gotten multiple instances of doing testing for, CMP, CBC, electrolytes, things that'll sound familiar to you if you have been in the ER as many times as most of us have in health and anxiety world. And most of those tests don't cover shit like iron. Your doctor's going to test for iron, and this is me like spouting things I read on the internet, kind of aggregating them, but your doctor would test for iron based on things you say to them that would speak to anemia, or I don't know what hyper iron it looks like, but typically people are anemic rather than the opposite end of the spectrum. Or like I think it's your red blood cells would be off. I think that's when they would also look to test for that. So those two things would make somebody test for iron. Just simply like doing general blood work, iron, I don't think it's tested for. Like your physical, your yearly like physical whatever, annual wellness check. Or if you say, I have like, some heart issue or whatever, like you go to the ER and be like, okay, I feel chest pains. Like they don't test iron in that situation. Those things don't speak to an iron issue. But if you look on the internet where people are like, I've been anxious for a decade and this is why I've been anxious. The select few people who are not anxious simply because they're anxious. Most people that have health anxiety have because they have health anxiety. That anxiety may have come because of a physical something that changed their mental wiring to be more anxious and aware of their body. But at the end of the day, they don't have a health problem per se that is why they are health anxious. But really, health anxiety is just a symptom of bipolar anxiety. So I may have to say basically their anxiety that just came on and not just come on because of a health issue directly. Typically, it's because of their mental reaction to something. So that being said, we still want like a catch-all, easy answer to why we are anxious suddenly. Like for me, it wasn't even necessarily a sudden thing. I still like I think that in my head, but like it was a gradual signs and symptoms that just were ignored by me. And of course, I like to think that because I'm low on some things in my general iron or general blood test, that okay, well, something else might be missing, right? So I get my iron test at this place maybe a week or two ago, right? And the past couple of days I've had moments of like sinus arrhythmia, which is like for like a young healthy person, sinus arrhythmia essentially means like your breathing more or less controls your like heart rhythm. I don't mean it to sound like as vague as it is. I still understand it myself personally, but that's kind of like more or less what's happening. So you don't have to have ectopic beats. You don't have to have like PVCs. I mean, you could have PVCs too, but like that you can have all of those not as part of the factor and still have sinus arrhythmia, which is just kind of what I described there. And I was kind of shaken because I hadn't had that as a reading. By the way, because of my anxiety, I use my Apple Watch ECG feature quite often. I use this AI EKG interpreter called Qualy, Qaly. That's Apple in the App Store, Apple App Store. And basically, you feed it like EKG taken from your watch, and it'll interpret it, right? So I've been doing this religiously since all of this has occurred. Just because I feel like pretty constant, chest. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's chest sensations. And I'm like, is this the one? Is that the one? Is this the one? I'm not going to speak into like specific disease or anything like that. I don't want to trigger anybody, but I had like pretty much a beyond perfect like heart before like I became inactive and all that stuff recently. So like I would have like, if I did an EKG on my Apple Watch in the middle of the night where you typically be sleep, mine could get down to like the mid 40s. Like that could be my overall on an EKG is mid 40s. So maybe a little bit lower, a little bit higher, but that could be like what I got. And I wouldn't really necessarily be like too concerned about that at that point in time, because like I went to a cardiologist and I took their answer, their what they gave me as like kind of word that like I just have a low resting heart rate, and it also spikes up pretty high when I do exercise, which is normal functionality, right? So, but I would check a lot. Like, I would still check, not as much as I could go like a week or so without checking, a couple weeks without checking. But I would still check on the EKG, which still is like, that's anxiety, right? Like that's, like to check your heart rate. Before I probably had like 700. I think I now have like 1,400 EKGs, like just like a few months. But before those few months, I think I had like 700, 800. So, and that's over from like early 2020, like January 2020 to that point. So yeah, so 4 years, about 800, and then in like 4 months, probably like another 600, 700. So that's where we're at. But in all of that, I pretty much get sinus rhythm almost every single time. My heart rate is kind of elevated to the point where it's not technically bradycardia anymore. I don't really get like low 40s, high 40s on a reading very much at this point. If I'm asleep, I may get a high, like a 48, 49. And coincidentally, the previous few weeks where I think I felt more anxious about not feeling as like, it's hard to explain. Like basically when you're anxious, a lot of times you have inner things that are sped up, such as your heart rate. And I think I got accustomed to that because I was search for it so much. And I was elevated. Like I was like, for me, elevated. Like I was like, my resting was like high 50s, low 60s now. And, I could just kind of sit around and be like at a 70-ish, which is not bad, but like that's not good either, right? Like that's for like somebody that's like 25, perfectly healthy. Like that's not really an indicator of being perfectly healthy. Like being around just at 70 or just sitting. So at 70, I just sitting. So, but that was my normal at that point. That's like kind of the established normal. So the past few weeks, I've gotten down to like a pretty consistent like 64 just sitting around. Like it would literally be like anytime I would check my watch, if I was just sitting around, it'd be like 64. And it could, you do an EKG, it go down to 62, it could go up to like 64, 65. But it's always in that range. There was like no movement really outside that range when sitting, which really made me go crazy checking it so often, which I thought the problem is me checking it, not the problem. I thought the problem of the heart rate, not the problem of me checking. I didn't think about that very much. So, but that's where I was at. And then if I was going to sleep, it would get to, I guess, like mid. I don't have it in front of me right now because I'm recording, but it would get. I actually don't need to hold this, but like before, for you to see me, I have to hold it. I didn't do a voicemail. I'm doing an actual video, so. But I have my Bluetooth. I could just like put the thing down. I can still hear me. My hand's gonna get tired at some point, so I may have to sit this down. But it would get to like 50s. Like, I don't know. Like, we'll just say like mid 50s. I think it's about right. Like, which that's me sitting around completely rested, about to go to sleep. Typically, if I'm just sitting around like at work or whatever, it'd be like up to 60s, which is, I think seeing the same number so often just drew me to go like fucking mad, which is why you shouldn't check these things, because no matter what you get vital wise, you're going to fucking like lose it either way. It doesn't matter if it's high, low, but whatever, because you're just like, there's probably some magical number you have in mind where you would like to be at, but that can shift, like I just said. Like, you could say, okay, well, 65 is okay, because when I had a bout of sinus tachycardia while doing a Holter monitor, that point my resting was like mid to high 70s, sometimes 80s, depending on like the moment. And I was like, well, fuck, man, I'd just love to get out of this. And I got out of it. And then I was like, well, fuck, 64. So, like, it doesn't matter. Like, no matter what you think your normal is at that moment, like, it can shift because your mind is fucking so alert of everything you're doing in your body and, of course, of numbers representing your body. Sorry to be said, like, I got that and I thought, okay, well, let me keep on testing, right? So, I did, there's a student center that you kind of get grandfathered into if you graduated from the school. I guess you'd have to graduate. I don't know. I still go there anyway. So I graduated like 4 years ago, but I can still go in there basically. So they're pretty much as comprehensive as like most ERs, except obviously it's urgent care, so you don't get like results the same day. But I had them do like some STD testing, and then I realized they could do iron testing, things of that nature. So I was going to go there, but I did the STD testing, which I just did that because like, literally testing everything I could think of. My brain was like, if I just test everything, then I'll be okay now. Like, I'll be able to accept that it's just anxiety. That's such an ass backwards way to don't think like that. Like, if you think I just need to get one more test, it's just like to get smoking one more cigarette. Like, it's the same thing. So anyway, I got to that point where I was like, fuck it. Just general test. Because of course, it was inspired by the Reddit post. People were like, yeah, I just had gotten a B12 shot, or I just gotten a vitamin D shot, or, I just got tested for this deficiency. And once I got cured, I got cured. And I was like, well, fuck, man, I'm low in a lot of things from my general work. Let's just test these. So I went to an AFC, which is such a lower standard of, like, responsibility, not self-responsibility. Well, I guess it's their responsibility, so it is self-responsibility. Their responsibility, the bar they have, is lower because it's urgent care. Like, basically, you're just testing acute things, right? But you should go into every urgent care expecting to be like that. I didn't at that location because they seem pretty decent, but generally expect that if you go to an urgent care, they're not going to care about you the same way that like your actual doctor would, or like somewhere you go to consistently. So they did an iron test for me, which is what I wanted to test for, and I knew they had the capability of doing so. So I had them do that. The results came in probably last week, and I didn't really talk to them about it because I knew the results. I got them from LabCorp, and that was it. Everything was normal, just in like very beginning of range normal, right? Some people will tell you, well, fuck, if you just get those up, like it's a supplement, you'll be okay. And I want to say this, like, none of this is medical advice, but one thing I will tell you that it is medical advice: do not self-supplement, because self-supplementing, the problem is, and this is reality I got to after the fact, the problem is almost all of your vitamins, especially the major ones people are concerned about, interact with each other. So, like, you can say, I'm just going to take a ton of potassium supplements, but potassium, I can't talk because anxiety, and I don't talk that much at this point because of the anxiety. So like my talking ability is dipped. Potassium interacts with sodium. So like if you just did a ton of potassium without proper this shit sucks, dude. Properly supplying for your sodium and vice versa, it'd be a bad idea. I don't know what would happen. Don't look it up. But, these things interact with each other. They have these calcium, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D3 tablets. But calcium and magnesium, if I remember correctly, you can't properly absorb both. Like, they inhibit each other to a certain degree when taken together. So these things, like, interact with each other. So, like, if you're normal in most spots, but you're, like, somewhat normal or somewhat, like, low normal in one, keep in mind there might be a reason why your body's keeping you in that state. So just, like, because everything is in harmony, right? But anyway, so the last couple of days I've been in sinus arrhythmia per my watch, which just was weird. Again, that result. I can't really say that I felt much differently as a person, but like I think I was more jittery, but maybe that's because of the reading, or if that's maybe because of my heart rhythm effectively being different. I put a lot of faith in sinus rhythm, like in the quality, which is a bad decision because if you look online, you're going to see a couple of readings where people are just like, this is a completely incorrect reading. But I put a lot of faith in like most of my readings being sinus rhythm because most of my readings were sinus rhythm. Like out of all the ones I've submitted to it, which are probably hundreds at this point, they almost all come back sinus rhythm. Like some of them may come back a little bit bradycardia-ish, some may be a little bit tachycardia-ish, depending on what you're doing. But those are easily like identifiable why those are what they are. There's no way to identify why the thing reads sinus arrhythmia unless you do like the custom AI or the custom technician, which is the actual person, not just the AI. It does give you like markers to indicate like this was this was a skip beat, this was a and does not tell you if like you just have like a wavy baseline because of artifacts, because you're taking on a watch, which if you're taking on a watch, the watch itself is just prone to fucking up because you're taking it like it's a single lead EKG for one, and there's also a situation where you have to like be functionally stable while holding the watch to get a good reading. If you get wavy baselines, that could be because you simply are shaking like a fucking chihuahua while taking your EKG, which if you're really hyper anxious, probably gonna be shaking. So of course that's logically what's happening, but I didn't take that to mean anything in my head. I just like, oh, fucking arrhythmia. So anyway, I took that and I was like, I'm gonna go to. I couldn't sleep that entire night because I was like just scared of what like that meant, like sinus arrhythmia. This has been 2 days ago now. Well, 2 nights ago now. I literally like I went to sleep at 10, and like for me sleeping is like almost my biggest like fighting moment because I have to like just let go and like trust that like I'm gonna wake up in the morning, which is hard for me. But oftentimes it does happen, and sometimes I do wake up in the middle of the night. So I went to sleep around 10ish. Woke up around 3. I think it was because I needed to take a pee break, but it might have been because of just like nocturnal anxiety. I don't know. But I don't know if I was feeling something different or if I just tested. I think I was, because for me, like the posture I tend to eventually sleep at, or get to a point, because I don't wake up at this point, but this is where I end up sleeping at, is face down on the bed, kind of like arms spread, hands under the bed, hands under the pillow. I think that works because my chest, which is chronically tight pretty much, can get stretched out. I think I don't feel comfortable in hearing my own heartbeat, but like sometimes I do. Most times I don't, but sometimes I do, right? So I don't know, maybe that's why. I don't know. I really have no clue. So that being said, I lay in a position I just couldn't feel like I could go back to sleep at that point for whatever reason. So I gave it like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I was trying to just make sure I didn't check, because I know like if I check at night, I'm going to get a lower heart rate, and that scares me, right? Like I know I'm going to get probably like mid 50s because your body is in like that some sleep mode, and like you're probably in that mode for probably about like, I'd say about 5 minutes after waking up. If you don't like, if you don't move or whatever. And probably like 5 minutes before you like eventually drop off to sleep. Like that's your body like, this is where I'm gonna be at when I go to sleep, right? So I see like 54 or whatever. I'm doing EKG at that point. I'm like, I'm scared, but like my body's saying like it's time for me to go to bed, right? So I think my body has been, I'm gonna assume what that was, my body has been in recovery mode from the anxiety for a few weeks, and that's why I kept on getting those low EKG readings. I don't know, because I really just feel like my body would like fucking fall out in that moment. But I think it's just I'm so fucking tired. So I did an EKG eventually after 20 minutes, just kind of sitting there doing nothing. And it said sinus arrhythmia. And I was like, okay, I've gotten that reading before, but typically like it's kind of a one-off reading, like, your wristband isn't right on correctly, or like you're having the wrong arm or whatever. Like things I've gotten that reading before, right? But I tested it again like 2 more times, 3 more times, left wrist, typically my good wrist, the one I typically have my watch on. I was like, still getting sinus arrhythmia. I was like, okay. So I started testing, you can do other bodies. Like the Apple Watch can like effectively act as like a single lead for multiple spots. So I did my chest, I did my stomach, and I did like my knee. The knee's like lead 2. And I think like your stomach is lead 3. And I forget what lead like having it like right like your middle of your chest would be, but like at this one another lead 2. And I think pretty much all those came back sinus arrhythmias. I think a couple didn't, but most of them did. So I was like, okay. I think I even tested my right arm too. And I was just going crazy at this point because, like, I looked it up, which you shouldn't, but I looked it up and I was like, yeah, arrhythmia is normal, healthy, whatever. Okay, so I even paid for, this later in the night, like this might have been 3, around like 6 or 7 when I still was up and I had to go places the next morning. You get to that point where you're like bartering and stuff. Like, I said, if I can just get like a couple hours sleep, I'll be all right. And I can just come back and nap. Or if I just get like an hour of sleep, and I can come back and nap. At a certain point, I realized I wasn't going to sleep. So this might have been like 4 or 5. I paid for the human technician to start reviewing a couple of these. And first they were like, okay, you have a wavy baseline. This is probably just sinus rhythm, but yeah. And then I kept on doing it because I still didn't feel comfortable sleeping. Like as there would be moments where I would just stop doing it, try to lay down, and I couldn't. Like I just could not accept the feeling that I had at that point in my chest. So I started, doing more human interpretations and kept coming back sinus arrhythmia. So I was like, okay. So we get to the point like maybe 7 a.m.-ish, and I'm supposed to have a PT for like my jaw clenching that comes because of anxiety. Fucking who can believe that? And that's gonna be at 8. So like an hour away. I was completely just like I was drawn dead tired. Like I was fucking completely fatigued, but that's just where I was at. So I was like, all right, and I'm going to the ER because I went to like a full blown panic mode. I don't know why, what set that off. I think I just had like it's slowly happening, slowly coming up, and the morning cortisol, which is going to come regardless if you sleep or not. The morning cortisol also kind of kicked in, and I just went to pretty much like, I think I was going to pass out. I think I might have thought that. I think I might have had that moment. If I had that moment, I'm going to pass out. That's when like it goes into a full-blown panic attack. But I had the shaking, like fucking, I didn't have it wasn't full-blown panic attack. I didn't have like any tingling in my arms or anything like that, but like, I just really felt like shit, right? And I had, the jitter, like kind of like, palpitations or whatever, and some other stuff, just like muscle spasms, and like, I think I might have thought that I was like really low in potassium. I'm not going to describe like why that would concern me, because you don't need to know if you don't know, you don't need to know. And I did blood work, I think a few ER visits ago, and that came back low. Not low as out of range, but lower, because I don't eat a lot. I don't eat a lot of healthy shit, of course, if I do eat a lot. So at that point, I'm like, all right, well, ER visit it is, right? So, but I did try to wait. I tried to wait as long as I could. ER visit, right? So it was enough. Typically, they just like kind of like hear me out, do the EKG, and I'm pretty much on my way at that point. It might do blood work, but they typically don't. But this time they did do blood work, because I came pretty soon after like it wasn't during that panic attack, but it's kind of soon after, right? And I was in arrhythmia, which I don't know if that matters for, like, at least I was in arrhythmia per the app. I don't, actually know if I was in arrhythmia or not, but per the app, the Quali app. So I was soon after that, so my stuff is going to, of course, be raised at that point. So I think I did have a pretty relatively, like, high, like, not like stroke level or like holy shit, like HR level, but like it was pretty much like, I think around like 140s and then like high 90s. Might have been like a low 100 reading, if I remember correctly. But it was like for like at least like mid to high 90s, which is enough at that point for like, okay, that's all right, let's just at least bring him in and have him sit down for a bit. That's not crazy. Like, I don't want anybody to hear that. I think that that's like stroke level. Like, it's not, but it's just enough to be like, okay, let's just hear him out. So they do a blood pressure test on me, like sitting up, sitting down, and laying down, because it was like high on the first reading when they first bring you in. And the doctor that came in, he talked to me, heard what I had to say, was still looking at my blood pressure and some of my diagnostics. I was like, okay. So they did blood work, which this guy, this is a freestanding ER, so like they typically like just make sure you're not like literally about to and they pretty much get you out. Like, it's not as thorough as a actual hospital can be sometimes, but they did the thing. And long story short, this doesn't really matter too much, but long story short, based on the test, they found it like in range for most everything. Normal sinus rhythm, not sinus arrhythmia, all that stuff came back fine. So they get me out of there, and I went out, got a nap, which was hard to accept taking a nap, but I took a nap for a couple of hours or so. And then I was still shaky, very shaky at this point. Dizzy. I took a medicine for like stomach pain at the same time, which I think also can do dizziness, but I was like very dizzy that day. I cannot drive type of dizzy. But because I'm dizzy most of the time with anxiety, I just got through it, put some sunglasses on, just pushed through it. And, I was still feeling shaky by that point, but it wasn't like I was about to pass out shaky. But because of AFC being able to do like, EKGs, pretty much upon request, you got to like just say a reason to get it done, but you can get it done pretty easily. What I was going to do in my head was just say, okay, I'm doing EKG here. I'm going to have the readout. And it's a plan I had in my head. I'm going to have the readout, and then I'm going to just look at that and say, okay, so this is what I got. This is my baseline. It's an actual EKG, a 12-lead EKG. And anytime I look at my watch and I feel something crazy, where's the EKG printout? And like, that's going to be the comparison, right? So that's what I had in my head, right? Let me take a break real quick. I got to get some water. I just got to got off a good conversation with my mom. So I had to, if you got people in your life that care about you, man, that's one thing with anxiety. Make sure you're around them people. Don't necessarily make it an anxiety thing, but make sure you sticking with good people, because if you let yourself go alone, bro, you're really gonna feel how bad anxiety is. Anyway, let's go and get this over with. I got the Lakers game coming on, the Celtics and all that. I gotta watch that, man. So yeah, I think at this point I felt normal midday. Went to AFC, went and got the EKG done. EKG came back normal, of course. Normal sinus rhythm, no arrhythmia or whatever. And they asked me on the way out if I wanted to do a B12 injection, because they were the one who did the iron test. And initially I was like, no, I'm taking other medicine. I'm trying to like watch myself, all this other stuff. I'm not interested in that right now. And she pushed at it. Keep in mind, these people get paid for the stuff they do for you. So, running by insurance or whatever. So eventually she got me, I'm a pushover, and that's something you got to make sure you really are strong mentally in this time. I'm a pushover, and I very much so regret taking that shot. But she aimed a B12 injection, and like almost immediately. And the problem is that I felt like just a complete fucking like burst of energy that like I've never felt that quickly in my life, and I felt like buzzing because of that. And I looked it up. And I Googled like B12 injection, like, does anybody ever feel weird after this? And of course, some of the results I got, people got panic attacks and shit like that after that. So at that point, I started just feeling I just went crazy. Like, I got like a just complete panic attack. Just I felt just like fucking pass out, like, you know. And I mean, like, I say pass out a lot of times in this video. I'm like, I thought I was gonna fucking fall. Like, I literally like was like fucking like leaning and shit. And of course I stood up and got myself up and told him like, hey, I'm fucking like, I'm not good. So they did pulse oximeter in my finger. This is not an ER or anything like that. I think my heart rate at that point in time was 143. Obviously the lady there, I was uncomfortable. The nurse, she was like, oh shit. So she got me a fucking a Powerade to sip on. I sipped on that for a while, maybe about 10 minutes or so. Came down to about like 90-ish, like maybe low 90. And said, okay, you're good. I was like, you sure I'm good? You want to offer me like a fucking a 911 call, or ambulance or something like that? I'm good. Okay. I started looking around because I was in the patient room at this point. I was like looking around like, there's no fucking defibrillator here, is there? And I mean, I know you can trust maybe a nurse and a nurse practitioner. They don't have doctors there, but she's a nurse practitioner to like give CPR. But so they didn't give a fuck. They got the money. They got me to tell me the fuck out after 10 minutes. So, one reason why you should stop testing is because a lot of times the people who are testing you, they give you the wrong shit. They are covered. And I checked the paper after I left. She said she, on the paper, explained the risks. She explained any fucking risk to me about taking a damn shot. She was like, yeah, people do this shit for anxiety, and you have a low level that's almost out of range, and here you go. There was no risk explanation. It was coercion, and she didn't give a fuck. So they're covered. Like, if I, at that moment, they would have been covered. And if you go to these naturopaths, these functional medicine people, and something happens with all the shit they're giving you, bro, just understand they're covered. Like, no matter what happens to you, if you go out of range on something, if you get, you get high on magnesium, you get low magnesium, or you get high on something else that can be toxic, they're covered. Like, you are fucked. And you have to understand, at least a doctor has to abide by some standards of your health. Like, they have a paper trail indicating what's happening with you. And of course, I mean, they're going to be covered too, because if they could just like be fucked at any moment, like, they would obviously probably not get in that position, that job. But the point being, like, at least you can kind of somewhat argue negligence with the doctor or something like that. That's like kind of bound by law to a certain degree, and has a paper trail to indicate like they fucked up somewhere. But a urgent care or a naturopath or all these people that like do not really have the same obligation, don't just go around like doing tests and shit like that with these people. Like, it's not smart to do that. Test okay, but like, just take whatever they give you. I mean, at the very least, like, run that shit by your actual doctor. People are gonna sit there and tell you like, oh, my fucking doctor is the fucking worst. This functional medicine person saved me. They may have given you something that saved your life, and that might have not been something that doctor would have, well, not saved your life per se, but helped your life a lot. That may not have been something that doctor gave you. But you have to understand, like, a doctor also has to abide by just so much higher standards of what they do for you than some fucking, dietitian that, like, just like, hey, well, the blood work you supply to me from your doctor says this is missing, that is missing. And it still be recommended for you to take that and give it to your doctor. Like, it still would be recommended to just, like, say, hey, can I take the supplement? Should I take a supplement? Does this work with everything else I got on? And the doctor could have the knowledge, and I can't say a naturopath wouldn't have the knowledge, but a doctor would definitely have the knowledge to say, okay, this is going to interact with this way. So if you take this supplement and you're high on this or low on this may even make you further out the range for this other thing. Naturopath won't give a fuck about that. But anyway, after that point, I had the anxiety attack, possible anxiety attack. I don't know what it was. B12, by the way, like, for the most part, like, you can run high on B12. There's like RDO or whatever. Or basically a level to say, like, you cannot go after this in a given day, or you will fucking, like, have something bad happen. That doesn't exist for B12. Pretty much because of your body, like, only uses the B12 necessary, and the rest of it just kind of, like, gets shipped out to, like, your pee hole or whatever. You piss it out. But you can, like, have people, let me just say this, people have had too much B12, but people, like, there's a person who's had too much of anything, right? So that scared me. Like, I was seeing that, like, while I was Googling. So that scared the shit out of me, because it interacts with magnesium. It interacts with potassium, actually. So that scared the fucking shit out of me. So I run low on potassium, like in the range of 3.9 to 3.51. No, 3.5 to 3.51. I run at 3.7, so which is normal, functional normal. But I've ran lower than that before. But you don't want to get too much lower than that. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but like, you know, fuck, I might just scare somebody. I'm sorry if I scared you with that. If you're still here, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you, but like you don't obviously want to run it lower on anything out of range low. So that should be obvious, you know. Anyway, so I ran to the fucking ER again, a different ER, the actual ER, not the freestanding one. And I was like, hey, I don't want to fucking like just pass out, you know, just fucking crash out, you know. What can you test me? So they did a bunch of tests. Whenever they had a bunch of tests, they just kind of pretty much kept me there, monitoring me for a while. Which is what I wanted anyway, just to make sure like I wouldn't go into like sudden, you know, this and that. Which I didn't, obviously. But they also did CMP, a comprehensive metabolic profile, which pretty much tests most of your electrolytes just to make sure I was straight. And they said I was. So I took that to say, okay, well, at least right now I'm BI. The thing is, a B12 injection can last for a week. So I don't know what the effects of that would have on my body, but I was just trying to eat like high potassium stuff. I had like an avocado, which I think I might be allergic to avocado. I think. Had a smoothie. Gonna get a salad after this. You know, so green leafy shit. As I understand, if you're on B12 and you don't know your potassium level, supposed to like take potassium anyway. It's kind of like supposed to go together. So I'm gonna do that and just be high on my potassium for the next couple weeks or so. And hopefully, you know, I think if you're only doing one shot, I don't think you have to worry about like it's just consistently high levels of B12. Like I think this shit would wear off eventually anyway. Because I understand with most people who have to take B12, they have to take it routinely. Because the levels do subside, and you do get to a point where I think your levels kind of raise up as far as the consistent amount you get. But I don't think one B12 shot would be enough to like maybe raise those particularly high. And mine was like 402, and the range is like 400 to like whatever. So like I don't think like I'll run into like some kind of toxic level from one shot. If anything, I'll probably level out. Like I don't know. I haven't leveled out yet because I'm like anxious, but I don't know if I'm anxious because of the shot or if I'm anxious because I'm anxious about the result of the shot, or if I'm just anxious. So, but I don't think it, like, for me, like, I think it would probably just get me, like, up to, like, I don't even know what number to get me up to, but probably just get me up somewhere and then keep me there for, like, a couple weeks, you know, maybe if not even, you know, maybe less than that. But I'm not getting any more shots, and I may not even get any more tests. As a matter of fact, I'm not getting any more tests. I may get another B12 shot test at some point, just to make sure I want to do another CMP at some point just to make sure my potassium's straight, but I don't know when I should do that. I'm just gonna try to keep it, just thug it out for a while with the high potassium stuff, and just try to avoid going to the ER if I can help it. My wallet tells me I need to stop doing that shit, so I'm trying to thug it out for a while, just keep scoping my body. But I started to say, like, don't do tests at a certain point, because all you'll do is worry yourself sick, and you'll be more susceptible to taking a test you don't, or taking a shot or a supplement or something like that you don't need. And that's the reason why any doctor will ask you what supplements you're on. Any ER will ask you what supplements, medication you're on. Any place will ask you, because this shit all interacts with each other. It's important for you to understand this shit all interacts with each other. You cannot just keep on taking random ass shit. You gotta make sure you understand, like, you are normal. If you are normal, you are normal, and you may not be in the optimal range or whatever, but like at least have like solace that you are normal. And if you're functionally normal, that means that you can at least get around, you can be straight. And when I say straight, I mean like you're okay. I don't mean like gay, straight, whatever. I mean like you're okay. That's like a slang. Because if you keep on taking the wrong shit, you can stop being straight pretty fucking quickly. That's probably be a clip somewhere. But anyway, that's it for me. I just wanted to let you guys know where I was at. I'm going to try to get this one fast-tracked and edited this and upload it quickly. I got a lot of videos I'm still sitting on and all that, but it is what it is. Don't do any more fucking tests if you've been told you're normal multiple times. Please don't fucking do any more tests. Please. You can maybe, like, if you feel like you just have not been nutritioned correctly, you feel like you've been fucking up after a few weeks, okay, get another blood test that, like, update on what you already, like, have been tested for. But please do not keep on doing like fucking THS. Like, if you got it, you got it. Like, you know where you at. Just work on what you got. Peace.